Hello world, this is the Real Nordic Black, aka the Angry Black Dad, reporting to you live from Norway. I'm the only African American online, live from Norway, reporting to you live, consistent with these videos I'm trying to put out at least every week. I do a better job at it. I think last week I kind of like just put one video out or whatnot, but I'm gonna try to continue to consistently put out material or whatnot. Yes, I got poor video quality, but hopefully I got high quality content that I talk about and give to you. Today I'm going to talk about the similarities between Norway and Japan. Norway versus Japan. Now I know some of you guys are thinking like, what the hell? What in the world does Norway got to do with Japan in any type of way, form, or fashion? Well, one of the reasons why I'm going to talk about Japan along with Norway, obviously I live in Norway, but Japan is because I used to live in Japan, if you ever listen to any of my other videos. And so I definitely got experience living there. I actually lived there from 97 to 2002. So during that time span, I had experience there living in Japan. Also, I noticed that I have, some subscribers that are either living in Japan or have some sort of connection to Japan, and that's definitely a plus. Love it. In all actuality, Japan is my one of my favorite countries, along with Norway. I think it would probably go. Sometimes I want to say Japan is number one, but America would be number one for me. Number two would be Japan, and number three would be Norway. In that order, definitely. And these are my favorite three countries in the world at this time. I love other countries like Costa Rica, Jamaica, and other countries, Bahamas. There's so many others that I like, and so many others places I want to go see and visit. But the countries closest to my heart, and like I said, I put on my top list is definitely USA, America, all day. Number two, definitely Japan. Love Japan in every way. In Norway, most definitely number three. Now let's get into it. Some similarities. First and foremost, I want to say about the behavior and mannerisms. Believe it or not, there's a lot of behavior and mannerisms that are very similar amongst the two cultures or amongst the two people. Believe it or not. I know some Norwegians or Scandinavians, and they're watching this, they're like, what the hell we got similar to some Asians or whatever, but definitely you guys do in ways as far as like talking to people. Definitely in Norway, they don't just, talk to random strangers. In Japan, they definitely don't do that at all. I'm sure in other countries, but I'm going to compare these two that I have experience in. So if it's about fact finding or all these other details, you ain't gonna get it from here. You're just gonna get it from my experiences of the two. Anyway, when it comes to behavior and mannerisms, definitely they're very similar. Like I said, when they don't speak to strangers, in both countries. You go in a store, whatever, you say, hi, what's up, how's it going? They'll look at you like strange in both countries, definitely. So there, the similarities are very, very close. In Japan, if there's a slight difference, I think in Japan I noticed there were more stares, because curiosity or whatnot, In the States, some people would take it as, especially from the urban community, or the big cities, some people will take it as, yo, you got a problem with me. When they look at you, especially in Japan. I remember back in the day, I used to be like, what the hell is this lady staring at me in a restaurant for? You know what I mean? But some of them was just straight keep looking at you too. Like, even if you're talking to them or whatever, half of them wouldn't even understand you, and they were just like looking at you. And a lot of it has to do with curiosity and stuff like that. But I don't notice that much of that, just curiosity in Norway. Obviously, they know a lot about Americans, more than more than some Americans know about themselves. You know, that's in some ways it's sad, some ways it's cool, some ways it's an easier transition to live, you know, in Norway or Scandinavia as a whole. Yeah, definitely you won't get as many like just people just staring at you. You will get, you know, people not talking to you on the public transportation, like the trains or the buses. Definitely they're real similar. You know, if the last seat on the bus is next to you, they'd rather stand up or be somewhere else. Most definitely, for the most part. You know, they definitely are very similar. Although, like I said, Norwegian is closer to English in many ways. There's a lot of English in Norwegian, or if you want to say Norwegian and English, whatever way you want to look at it, they're very similar, but they still act very close to how Japanese do when it comes to behaviorisms and behavior and mannerisms or whatnot. Definitely, you know, they don't talk to strangers. But I do believe once you do become a friend, like in Japan and Norway, they can be your best friend for life, and they can be, you know, do wonders for you. You know what I mean? They'll go all out for a friend, definitely. In that sense. The next subject, I like the warrior culture. Being a guy, you know what I mean? Like Genghis Khan and the nomads and samurais, which are in Japan, Vikings, which is Norway. They have a history, both cultures, both countries have a history of a warrior type of culture. You know what I mean? Although there were some similarities and, you know, some big differences, but just the fact that they had some world famous you know, warriors, you know, warrior culture that are world famous, you know, that's a similarity right there from the samurais to the Vikings. And those are some reasons why I had, you know, definitely I have a lot of interest in the histories of both countries, definitely. Not all and everything, but it was definitely a big reason. Another subject. Oh, and speaking of that, you know, I learned a lot more because a lot of people had a stigma. You know, of course, the samurais, and in Japan, you always think about things being sophisticated and things like that. But, you know, as I grew to learn, you know, about the Vikings, there was a lot more sophistication than a lot of people think. You know, it wasn't just the Arabs that had the best seafarers or, excuse me, or the best, you know, built the best boats in the world. The Vikings did a pretty good job as well. And how quick they were going inland and plunging, you know, countries and stuff like that. And it wasn't just only plunging and all these things. You know, there was a lot of that. But like I said, there's a lot of sophistication, or at least more than you would assume. You know, when you think about Vikings, you would just, you know, instead of just the grunts and just coming in and just pillaging countries, there was a lot more sophistication than that. And like I said, although anyway, we'll get into that. My last subject, geography, stuff like that. So the next reason with similarities in between the two, languages, believe it or not. I know some of you guys think, what the hell does the Norwegian or the Scandinavian language, European language, has something to do with this Asian country? You know, they're not in the same family or even close. Well, I want to tell you from my perspective and my lens and my experiences. Well, let me start out. My wife had mentioned to me, I remember when she found out I had some relations with Japan. I used to be stationed in Japan, like I said, when I was in the military. She had mentioned when she was in London at a time, and I don't know if she was standing in line or she was outside somewhere, and she said she had heard, but she thought somebody was speaking Norwegian. And then as she listened more closely, she realized it was something different, but it sounded so close, and then the person looked Asian to her, so she was like, what the hell? And to find out, they were speaking Japanese. And that ties into what I'm about to say within the language, is that they have the vocabulary in Japanese and Norwegian is pretty close, you know, to the same, except of course Norwegian, a few minor letters or whatnot. Definitely, I'm talking about generalization in general, not everything, of course. So don't, you know, say, oh, we got 3 or 4 different and certain things sound different when you, of course, and even in Japanese, there's just a few, but like I said, mainly in general, the vocabulary is pretty close to the same, and the fact that they especially when it comes to foreigners who's learning Japanese, the Latinized version of the words, when you read it, the Latinized, what they call, I believe, Romaji, if I still remember. And that is kind of like the Latinized, where they use letters that, you know, we can, as foreigners, can read to read Japanese, and we pronounce it, and it's pretty much exactly the same as you see it, whether it's a U or R. It sounds pretty close, pretty much the same. And in Norwegian, it's the same. You know what I mean? It sounds like, compared to their Scandinavian brothers, for the most part, they sound a lot closer, especially compared to Danish. Some words, when you read in Danish, they sound definitely like almost like 50% sound different. It's not like that in Norwegian and Swedish, especially in Norwegian. Definitely a lot of it sounds the same as you read it. That's how it sounds out when they speak it, and that's how it is in Japanese, almost to a T. So that right there is a big comparison. Like now going back to the Japanese, like I said, it's the Latinized written form for the foreigners that are learning, called Romaji, so they can read it. But their written form is, which I really encourage foreigners, when you learn Japanese, forget about the Latinized version. I learned that the hard way. Start out learning how they learn, starting with hiragana, katakana, and then kanji, and building up on your kanji and stuff like that. Now, my time is going. Food, believe it or not, I want to talk about food a little bit real quick. Like, of course, in Japanese food, to me, in my opinion, is the most healthiest, food in the world. In comparison to Norway, definitely Japanese food is healthier. But when it comes to fish, the fish industry in Norway is still pretty good. Especially in the past, where they relied on the fish industry a lot more. When they didn't have, when the oil, industries weren't up and running as much as they're going now. They relied more on the fish industry, so much so that from what I read, I can't remember the details, but it even got the attention of Japanese, fishers and the fishing industry. So they, I believe, used at some point, they came out to these waters out here in the northern ocean or whatnot, and fish some of these fish that were kind of rare or hard to get to as well. Of course, the Japanese fish industry is like one of the biggest in the world, but I'm saying outside of Japan, I promise you, if you read up on it, Norway will come as a close second or third or something. It's definitely high up there when it comes to fish industry. Like I said, we all know that Japan is, but that is a similarity, because out of all the other countries, Norway is pretty, outside of Japan, Norway is pretty high on that, the fishing industry and stuff like that, and it's known worldwide for fish. Like I said, I have a friend from the Bahamas, and he even knows about some fish from Norway. Lastly, geography. I believe that like Japan was known as an exotic land, especially in the past, in the ancient times. It was known as an exotic land. And I think Norway has a similarity, kind of known as an exotic land in a way, because it was so far up north. The Northerners, the Nordmen. And so I think those, to some people, that's kind of an exotic. You couldn't fathom how that country was. You know what I mean? And so, although there was big differences, with in Japan, where they were more ethnocentric, where they wanted to stay to themselves, it was almost total opposite, where in Norway, they wanted to expand and see other things, not just plunge and pillage. Yes, they did that, but they also and of course build their riches and things like that. But within doing that, they had to learn other cultures and languages and just other things. You know what I mean? A lot more so than the Japanese. I'm not saying that the Japanese couldn't, but the Japanese chose more to be within themselves more. And as you see now, it's more of a homogenous nation in Japan. A Japanese person walking the street, and he turns around, you might miss him. You know what I mean? or if you call his name, he might be like about 100 heads turning around. You know what I mean? So it's totally different than it is in Norway. There's a lot more, you know, it's more distinctive. You can see who's who more so here. It's not as homogenous. Anyway, yeah, like I said, with geography, both I believe are kind of exotic. We're known as being exotic lands in a way. You know, Japan especially, but even Norway. You know what I mean? Being from way up north or whatever. You know, not too many people traveled up there. You know what I mean? Up north back in the day, in the ancient times. Anyway, I hope the video is not too long. This is the Real Nordic Black. If you like this video, please click the like button, the thumbs up, and please remember to subscribe. You know, share the video, whatever. You know, I'm gonna be coming with more topics. You got any questions or things you want me to talk about? Leave it on the comments or whatever. You know, let a brother know. Alright then. Peace.